Okay, welcome back to day 2 of the For Love of Life retreat with Freedom Thinking. I'm Dave Elleray.
I'm Jenny Elleray.
Yeah, and we've got Lucia down here, so it's going to mute a couple of people.
Just mute them.
Yeah, so welcome. This is day 2 morning. A little bit of housekeeping. This is a via donation retreat. We do it via donation because we're aware that at this time some people are struggling financially and we want everybody to have access. These recordings will be floated on YouTube for anybody to look at. If you're watching on YouTube later on and you feel impacted by these retreats and you wish to make a donation, our PayPal is info@freedomthinking.co.uk, which is also our email address. If you want to contact us about bank details in order to make a donation. If you are not in a position financially to be able to make a donation to Jenny and myself's work, what we've asked for is that in exchange, could you please do something kind, pay it forward with an act of kindness. Go out into the world, help somebody. We ask that people go above and beyond. When I say that, I mean, perhaps do something a bit bigger than buy a big issue. Like help somebody that needs some help, help them. Perhaps a homeless person, take them a meal or something like that and sit and talk to them and show them some love. I don't know, that's just an idea that comes to me there, and then just help spread love in this world, because that's what Freedom Thinking and Jen and I are about. We're about helping people raise their level of consciousness, which in turn creates a more beautiful world for us all to live in. So that's a little bit of housekeeping to begin with. Second thing is we're just going to switch around the first 2 talks, simply because Lucy is asleep at the moment. And the first talk was with just myself. So whilst Lucy is asleep, I think it's nice to have Jen here as well, so Jen can share. Because when Lucia gets a bit rowdy, she goes off upstairs, hence the other Freedom Thinking page up, and Jen will join from upstairs. So this morning's topic, we're going to go till 11 o'clock, and then we're going to have a break. And it's called The Nature of Freedom. So, yeah.
Yes, we've called today The Nature of Intelligence. And when Dave speaks later, yours is called The Nature
of Intelligence.
Oh, is that actually what you called yours as well?
Yeah.
And I don't know, I kind of feel it is a bit weird doing it this way around. I don't think we've done it this way around before, but when you came up with that title, the thing that occurred to me is something that we've spoken quite a lot about, is that this deeper intelligence, this mind, and I know yesterday somebody, I think Debbie's on, who's of faith, she calls it God, is totally free to create anything. And I think I came across the principles and it shifted my life so much and took it in a way more positive direction, and I got filled with so many more feelings of love and compassion and all the things that we love to feel as human beings. And I had a feeling that, oh, if I can just understand this enough, I'll always live there. I'll always live in a beautiful feeling. And I've kind of I kind of went on a bit of a journey of like, well, it's just free to create anything. And I think I started feeling almost, well, whatever comes to mind it's sort of beyond me, and it's all so free. And then we've kind of then done a bit of a loop, and I think had really cool conversations where you're like, yeah, but there is something within us that if somebody asks us our name, we recall it. If someone asks us our age or where we're born, like it's not random. So there's something within us that can give an answer. And there's this kind of back and forth that many people do. Is it free will or God's will? Is it this or is it that? And I think it was maybe a couple of years ago, we were listening to a talk, and I think, is it Bruce Grayson? No,
Which talk?
the one about free will. And well, you'll think of it when I talk about it. But he spoke about in the Western world we have a twofold system.
Dr. Bruce Grayson, yeah.
Something is either true or it's false. And he was saying, but in Eastern philosophy and culture, they have the fourfold system. So something can be true or it can be false. It can be neither true nor false. And it can be both at the same time. And there's something about that I can't get my head around it, but it opens something up in me. And it kind of took me back to that question. Is it free will or is it God's will? And I realized it's not that kind of question. We can't logically understand this. But there is that deeper intelligence is so free it can create anything. But then we're not separate from that. So it's not random and we're not powerless. And I think that's the thing that I've loved chatting about and kind of talking to people about over the last few years, because I definitely started to feel way more powerful again. And I could see how, there's easy thought trains that I go down. There's easy patterns that I can get into. But there's an awareness when that's happening. And Sid used to say, raise your level of conscious state, raise your level of awareness. And with awareness, I feel like I do get more autonomy. I can either go down that route or not. And I don't know, that's something that definitely brings more beauty into my life. Like, it's really easy for me to go down the judgmental route of a particular person in my life or something. And it feels very familiar and almost, well, it's just true. But this level of awareness, this level of consciousness stuff, as that starts to rise or expand, you don't have to do the well-trodden routes in the same way anymore. You can catch yourself way earlier. And I think that's why I've kind of loved what Dave's going to be speaking about in the next session, because when we take this out of the human being, out of human principles, and we really take them and expand them in the way that Sid spoke about them and knew them as universal principles, you see that deep intelligence is there to guide and move us. And we have the free will to create an idea that we're separate and we can go with that, or we can almost relax back into, or I think Linda Pettit's talk later is called, she's learned to lean into curves, which I thought was a beautiful way of saying it. And that's actually the name of her book. We get moved by that. And I think I used to think the idea of free will was like I wanted it. But there's a brilliant quote that I'll try and find in a moment from Sid about free will. And I realise actually this idea of free will is still in the idea of duality and separation. And it's what do we identify with? Do we identify with the creation, or do we start identifying with the creator? Do we limit ourselves by who we think we are? All the things that we've thought before, all of our ideas, our character? Or do we lean back into that force, that intelligence that knows how to grow trees and beat our heart? And like, I know which one feels expansive and free and loving and takes me towards all the things that the world and I enjoy. And I know the one that takes me on routes of judgment, anxiety, depression, insecurity. And I love that it is just a noticing, because we are that free that we can go wherever we want. Like you spoke yesterday of, you had that day with doing the tree work and you knew that you went with it. But what I loved about kind of what unfolded was the insight that came from that. So then, like, the judgment of, well, was it wrong to go in that negative kind of frame of mind and have that day, or was it just perfect? And I think I'm moving in the direction of, wow, it's perfect, the perfect unfolding of it, the deeper intelligence to not only the beautiful feelings, but the low, the depressed, the not good enough. Is there knowledge and learning there? And I think that's what I've loved to explore more. Like, this isn't about always being happy. It's about a freedom that's beyond what I understand. It's beyond. And I know with these principles, after the first course, I had no language to speak about it. And then I created all these concepts, and I'd be like, how, we've got 3 days, how are we going to get everything into these 3 days? Whereas I'm like, we've got 3 days, how on earth are we going to fill it? And yeah, that's kind of what comes to mind with that title. And I'm going to look for Sid's quote while you speak about kind of what's coming to you.
Yeah, we once had a client, and he said to me, I said, what do you think you're looking for? He said, I'm looking for the freedom that you have, Dave. I said, oh, really? I said, what does that look like to you? And he went, well, you're always happy and you love everyone. I said, that's not true. I said, but I do consider myself to be free. What that man was actually talking about was a limitation. He was actually creating a prison. He had an idea of freedom that was actually ultimately a trap. It was a prison. I should always be happy. I should love everyone. Now, I don't know about you. I'm not always happy. And I don't always love everyone. I've got far more love in my heart than I used to have, certainly. And there are times in my life, throughout my day, throughout my week, where I feel love for absolutely everyone. And there are times in my day and in my week when I don't. It'd be lovely to love everyone, but that's not the nature of humanity at this present time. It's not the nature of consciousness of humanity at this present time. And I think we must start to embrace and accept that fact. Because if we're not accepting and we're not embracing, we are judging and at war. And if we are at war, we are going to create suffering. Freedom is our truest state of being already. I mean, I speak to people and they're trying to escape the matrix. Got to escape this matrix, Dave. Look at the matrix, all about the matrix. And it's like, yeah, but do you not understand? The matrix is within you. The matrix isn't something that we must escape from outside of ourselves. It's something that we have created within ourselves. It's a belief system. And each belief, my mother described it beautifully. You'll see her, she's actually represented by the little Jack Russell now. That's Pebble. But my mother described it beautifully. I'm going to draw it, if that's all right. You want to do the camera? Can we do it? She said she was born into an infinite potential. Can everybody hear me all right? Yeah, cool. She said she was born into an infinite potential. And she said throughout her life, if you imagine this is the infinite potential, she said throughout her life, she started to create beliefs, she started to create ideas, she started to create ego. And she represented it as a tunnel. And she said this tunnel was built up of her beliefs, was built up of her ideas, was built up of all her things that she held dear, the things that she protected, all the identities that she held, the ideas about other people, the ideas about the world, the ideas about politics, finance, whatever, it doesn't really matter. She said they were like bricks. And she said, and before long, without her even noticing, she said, I became narrow-minded and tunnel-visioned. She said, I could no longer see the infinite potential which I was born into. And she said, and it took my mum a little while to start to listen to this conversation because I appeared mental, having gone through a massive breakdown, only to come out the other side and go, I'm absolutely fine now. That wasn't really part of that wasn't really a brick that my mother held within her tunnel, that was possible. So I just appeared insane. And when I started talking about how it's all a spiritual reality, it's all thought, it's all this stuff that I can't really explain, but it's I sounded insane. And after a little while, my mum started to listen, and bit by bit, she said, my tunnel broke down. Oh, hell. No, it's flip chart one. She said it broke down. I can't do it now because I'm going to think. And she said,
Whiteboard.
Yeah, it's a whiteboard.
Is that a whiteboard?
She said, bit by bit, it broke down. And as it broke down, she said, I started to find this infinite field again that she already was. She said the only thing that took her away from the infinite field was her beliefs, was her bricks that she carried. Her bricks that she thought were solid, these thoughts that looked not like thought, they looked like solid reality. Until they started to disperse, until they started to tumble down, and she found herself in a more open space, more open-hearted, more open-minded, as opposed to being that tunnel-visioned and narrow-minded. That's what this conversation is about. This is, Jen calls it, she calls it an unlearning. We're really unlearning all the ideas and beliefs that we've created throughout our lifetime, or perhaps lifetimes, as to who and what we think we are. Every single belief we carry is actually a limitation. It's not a freedom. Yeah, right now, Lucia isn't full of her ideas yet. She hasn't come up with ideas for everything as yet. This is why Jesus spoke about beginner's mind. To enter the kingdom, you must become like the child. Well, that's not like running around playing games, catch and whatever. But it's about starting to live a life with a more open mind, seeing more wonder, seeing more awe, finding the magic in everything, being able to pick up a stone and actually marvel at the very existence of the stone, or the rubber duck. Simple beauty in everything. It's there for everybody to play with. This world is a miraculous event. It's an inexplicable event. And I often speak about the time about when Faye came over with Otis. Otis was 2 years old, and these two pigeons were flying straight. We saw, like, what's Otis looking at? And he was staring, he's like stood up, and he was like braced himself for what was just about to happen. And what happened was these two pigeons flew straight towards a garden, flew right over his head. He nearly fell over backwards watching them. Jen was like, did you see how interested he was in the pigeons? Like, yeah, but in this time, he hasn't created a concept of, oh, that's just a pigeon, I know what that is. He's seeing the miracle of flight, beings that are capable of flight, beings that look very different to himself. he saw the miracle and the majesty and the miraculous nature of the pigeon, something that we can all take for granted because we think we know, we believe we know something about them. You see, the moment we believe, we create ego. There's that parable in the Bible about the Garden of Eden and eating the fruit of the tree of knowledge. The other name for the fruit, for the tree of knowledge, was the tree of death. The tree of life and the tree of death both exist in the Garden of Eden. Don't eat from the fruit of the tree of knowledge. Why will you die? Because you will exit heaven. Heaven being that open-hearted state. That state of wonder and awe, the miraculous nature of existence, how it comes into being. And you will start to believe you know something about it. And the moment we believe we know something about it, the magic disappears, but the magic is always present. The only thing that separates us from it is our belief that we know something, our ego. It's all an illusion. It's all just a simple illusion that is all, as Sid Banks said, it's a thought thick. It's a thought thick. Because in actual fact, we are all the miracle of life. Look at a single piece of hair that's grown on your head. Did you grow that? Or did life grow it for you? You know, do you work your immune system? Do you teach yourself balance, or was balance something you discovered within yourself? Everything already exists. Everything already exists. It's beautiful. It's miraculous, and it's free to create anything. Funnily enough, so are we. There's no limitation in thought. Zero limitation in the power of thought. Nothing. There is not a single limitation within the power of thought. It's infinity. There's no end to thought. If you think about that for a moment, you will never run out of thoughts. It's impossible. So within our very being is infinity itself. And we think we know what we are. We think we are limited. I'm limited to these feelings. I'm limited to this identity. No. That's all. It's all an illusion. That's a belief. That's all that is. It's simply a belief. It's all beliefs. Love is so free, it allows us to create anything. Love is so non-judgmental, it allows us to create anything. There's just the perfection of life. And our ability to create the idea that it's imperfect. Yes.
So this is a Sid Banks quote. We all have what we call a free will and a free mind. And this free will and free mind, nobody but nobody can take it from you. It is yours. But there's a little trick to this free will and this free mind. Because this free will and free mind is what holds you prisoner. It's what keeps you in hell. It's what keeps you in ignorance. Because you have chosen to use your own free will in this game of life, this illusion, instead of submitting to this so-called free will, to the will of God. Because the will of God, in actual fact, is the only will that actually exists. That's one taken from one of Sid's early talks. I think in the early days he did speak quite a lot of, he mentioned God and God consciousness, and he was aware because he'd been brought up Christian. That's the language that kind of had come to him. And then I think he realized that so many people get switched off by a word. And I feel like that's when he started speaking more about this. You know, he would sometimes call it universal mind and mind, but he realized that, wow, words really can like switch people on and off. Like we did it in community group once where Dave put the word God on the board and said, right, out of 10, loving it being 10, 1 being you hate it, where are people at? And we went round a room of about 16 people and we had everywhere between 1 and 10. Some people loved it, some people hated it. And then one lady said, if I'd come to this group a few years ago and seen that word, I'd have left straight away. She said, now I kind of know what's been pointed at with that word and I'm fine with it. So even within ourselves, we change how we see words. But I think I kind of loved it when I came to the principles because I wasn't religious, how neutral it was. It wasn't religious,
Yeah,
but it kind of speaks to the heart of every religion.
Yeah, how all encompassing it is.
Yeah,
it's like there's a fundamental truth to life, and it has been. This is one of the beautiful things that I found, because I did want to believe in God, but I couldn't. I wanted to think there was an overarching benevolent state, but I couldn't see it in the world of form. And it was only when I discovered it within myself that I realized it's one, it's real, and two, it is really the only reality that exists. It's applicable to every single thing. It's always there. It's some people call it the omnipresence. Everybody is the ultimate perfection, playing the game that they're not. And everybody is free to do so because, like Sid said in that quote just there, everybody's the ultimate free will. But it's not free will from the ego, which is why the intellect can't change it. People are trying to change their thoughts with the intellect. The intellect's too late. The intellect's form already taken shape. Now, form cannot affect form. Sorry, form cannot create form. My apologies. Form cannot create form. Only energy can create form. So trying to change form with form is a bit of a fruitless task. It's very limited, but when you start to go before the form and you start to gain an appreciation or even an opening up to the notion that perhaps there is something greater to me than what I ever thought there was, that reorientates the form within our intellect. It reorientates the form within our awareness, within our reality. And as it reorientates the form within the reality, we literally start to see a new world. Because the world we see is a reflection of mind. That's why everybody on earth sees a different world. That's why everybody on earth, at some point in their life, comes across an argument. At some point in their life has a disagreement with somebody. At some point in their life goes, no, that's not true. But it is true to the other person. It's true and real until they think differently about it. Everything appears true and real. All realities are both real and not real at the same time. Like Jen said, with the quote that Dr. Bruce Grayson came up with, we live in the West, we come up with the twofold, who was it? It was Aristotle came up with the twofold thing. You either prove something to be true or false. But when you get down to quantum reality, quantum physicists talk about, no, this operates outside of what we can actually understand at the current level of consciousness. Two things can be in the same place at the same time. You affect something on one side of the universe, and at exactly the same moment on the other side, through quantum entanglement, they call it, it can affect something here. We live in a very not twofold system in true reality. We live in a quantum universe as opposed to a Newtonian universe. A Newtonian is the illusion. The quantum universe is the true reality. Now, we are quantum beings because everything is quantum. Quantum sounds very scientific, but it's, use the word spiritual if you prefer, because really it's pointing to exactly the same thing. This is what they discovered through quantum is nothing new, because it was discovered millennia ago through Hinduism and Buddhism, through many religions. The first original teachings were all about who and what we are. There is one consciousness. Everything is one. You are not separate from it. That's why Buddhists and Hindus, they work on their minds to create a more beautiful life for themselves. They don't run around outside trying to earn money. They're not trying to affect the world, to bring about change in the world in order to feel better, like what we are. Some people call that outside in. Like the Essenes. The Essenes knew that thought was the highest, most powerful force in the universe. Thought, the everyday force that guides our every movement, creates our every feeling. The instigator of all action, all behavior, all emotion. Without thought, there's nothing. Power of thought. Power of thought, consciousness, mind, they're all one. You can't split them. They're one force, and it's a force we give the term love to because it's beautiful. That has to be realized. I remember when Jen and I were working out in Cape Town, South Africa, and it was our first day ever working in a township. And we were sat down with, it was about 16, I think, or so, maybe a couple less, people from a township. And I remember the first day, a lady came, nobody spoke to us, nobody would speak apart from this one lady and this first lady. Forgive me if you've heard this story, but this lady came up to us and she said to us at the end, "Did you notice I was the only one who talked?" And we said, "Yeah, we couldn't miss that." She said, "Do you know why that is?" And I said, "No, I haven't got a clue." She said, "Well, it's because you're white." She said, "They're black." She said, "They don't trust you." "Why should they?" She said. You probably won't be able to tell, but I'm coloured." She said, and the coloured people in South Africa had a very different relationship to the white people. And I've been told off on radio for saying that word, but that's what that lady actually called herself. And I'm not going to disrespect her by calling her something that she didn't call herself. That's her words. And she said to us, if you want to get them to open up, you've got to gain their trust. And I remember we drove away and went out for the night and came back. I'm driving back in, all of a sudden it hit me. Bloody hell, Jen, we've got this situation, you know, these people don't want to talk to us. We've got 3 days with these people and they don't even want to talk to us. And in the end, we just came to the conclusion, driving in, we're just going to hit it head on. We're going to hit this race thing head on. Now, the black-white divide is one of the biggest divides on the planet in South Africa. The South African black-white divide is one of the biggest divides on the planet. You could say it looks monumental, which in the physical reality, it really is. It's monumental. But this day I sat down with Jen right at the front again, and they all came back and were voluntold to be there by the charity. And I remember just sitting there going, right, there's a big white elephant in this room. It's Jenny and I. Please tell us what you see in us as white people. All of a sudden these fingers went up, pointing, and you white people, you are rich. You white people, you don't have drug problems. You don't have drink problems. You white people don't go to prison. You white people, you have easy lives. All these things were thrown at us. I remember sitting there with Jen and saying, is that honestly what you see in me as a white person? Honestly, they're like, yes. I said, right. I said, I've done every single one of those things that you say white people doesn't happen to white people. I said, apart from be rich. And they're like, you've been to prison? Yes, I went to prison. I've been to prison. But white people don't go to prison. This white person's been to prison. You've had drink problems? Yeah, I've had problems with drink. And yes, I've had problems with drugs. Yeah, I have. I haven't had an easy life. At one point, I wanted to take it. And in that moment, these people opened up. They started to fall open. This belief had been challenged. It was a universally held belief among many of those people. I don't know how, to the depth within each person, I don't know. But all of a sudden they suddenly started to get interested in us as white people. Well, tell me about your life. And we got to have an open conversation. By day 3, these people were saying, you're my brother, you're my sister, we love you. We are so full of love. Now, the world hadn't changed. History hadn't changed. The only thing that had changed was the perception, the judgments of human beings. The mind is free to think again. The mind is always free to think again. It's just our beliefs create reality. It is done unto us as we believe. Now, the thing is about beliefs is they don't look like belief. They just look like true reality. It's an illusion. It's a magical, phenomenal illusion. That's why we have this conversation, because once we start to shine a light on this fact, it becomes very difficult for all these beliefs to hide in the background, controlling reality. All of a sudden, what this conversation tends to do for people is it shows them their ego. And as people start to have their ego revealed to them, what was once in the dark can now be seen. Now people, you become aware. And when you become aware, you can do different. You have more options. It's a bit like the wizard in The Wizard of Oz. Once he was seen for what he was, He had no power. And in reality, no thought has any more power than any other thought. Only that we grant it. Only that we believe into it. And I think that one of the most beautiful things, there was a fellow that came and did an intensive with us. He was suicidal. He said, if this doesn't work, I'm going to kill myself. And we're like, fair enough. No pressure. And there really wasn't any pressure, because we had absolute faith that this man would see something different. And also, ultimately, it is his choice. As much as I wouldn't want him to. Everybody's free. He argued for the first 2 days, which is why we do it over 4 days, because we expect that all these questions to come up and confrontations to come up as we challenge the ego. Halfway through day 2, he contradicted himself, and I asked him which one was real, and he said, oh, this one now. I said, funny that, isn't it? Your reality's just changed with a change of thought. And as he started to see that, as that started to kind of become a point to which he could actually look at, that man changed. He didn't want to commit suicide. He became a very different man. We heard of people who met him in the supermarket who said, who is this man? Who's this new person? Now, the world hadn't changed, his past hadn't changed, his genetic makeup hadn't changed. What had changed was he'd realized something true. And I remember him being on one of our community groups one time, and somebody asked him a bit about that, and he said something had happened to him during the day, and this person said to him, well, what did you do? What did you do? And he said, it changed because I questioned my own mind. I questioned my own thoughts, the validity of them. It was that simple for that man. He just questioned his own mind. He didn't run the program that was being presented. He questioned his ego. And that man, he said, he even just, I mean, this is what happens is it's a spontaneous thing. It's not something you need to work on. It's just spontaneous. So he was out in the supermarket, and he got his usual food that he likes to buy. He got to the checkout and looked at it and went, why would I want to put that in my body? He said, and I turned around, I went and put it all back. He said, and I started to fill up with organic fruit and vegetables. He said, it made no sense for me at that point to pollute my body. He said, I knew I was polluting my body. He said, it made no sense to him. He said, I've changed. You see, the wisdom that comes to people when the tunnel collapses or starts to collapse, starts to fall away, the tunnel vision that we live out of beliefs don't look like beliefs. They look like reality that we defend. The wisdom that is always available on the other side of the tunnel, it doesn't go anywhere. The tunnel's the illusion, the wisdom's the true reality. Infinite freedom of knowledge and thought that can guide us successfully through our life. Everybody is it already. It's not something you find, it's not something you acquire, you are it. It's not something you have, in fact. You don't have it, you are it. It is what you are, creating the illusion that you're not. That's what I am. Creating the illusion that I'm not when I'm lost. And we all get lost. It's part of the game of life as a human being at this level of consciousness. Everybody's already perfect. Everybody on earth, no exceptions. Just in varying degrees of lostness in their reality, in varying degrees of awareness, different levels of consciousness. Some of us are interested in awakening our wisdom, and others really aren't. There's the freedom. Everybody's free to do whatever they wish. Everybody's free to be wherever they are. There's no mistakes. Mistakes are a judgment of duality, which doesn't exist. Right and wrong. When I say everything's perfect, I don't mean everything is either good or anything like that. I just mean it is as it is. It can't be any other way. So how could it be possibly anything than perfect? Doesn't mean it couldn't be different. There is only perfection. The oneness cannot make a mistake, because there's not two of it to judge it. Jen, do you want to say anything, love? Or should we go to break?
I think I mentioned it on community group the other day, and I may have even mentioned it yesterday, but it's just been so fun watching Lucia create concepts, ideas, and she's kind of gone from when she's awake, just like Sid spoke about, observing life as is, and you can just see like this total just presence observing life as is. And then she's starting to get a little what appear to be like frustrations if she can't reach something, or something's not quite how she wants it, or she doesn't get something as quick as she wants it. And it's just funny watching it develop. And I think I did say it yesterday, and you see the absolute innocence in it. I think quite often we can beat ourselves up and give ourselves a hard time for our egos or our characters or our quirks. And I think watching a baby develop one, you're like, no, it's just, we're born into this life, and we open our eyes and we start creating ideas and see separation, and you see it's not wrong or bad. And I think, like you said, people are often trying to escape ego, escape the matrix, but we get to be here and have a name and a character and a personality and play. You know, Sid often spoke about the game of life, and I think we can take it all so seriously. And it is lovely to watch a young baby just not take it so seriously. It doesn't mean she doesn't get frustrated, she doesn't get upset, she doesn't have her own little things, but you can see that that's just part of being here in the illusion. But it's also a fun place to play when you start to recognize. And I think I remember Chip Chipman, who was one of the very early teachers around this, who knew Sid. I don't think he knew him before his experience, but shortly after. And he said he was with Sid once, and he was so excited to go and tell him about his insight he'd had. And Sid was like, come on, put your coat on, let's go for a walk. And he was thinking, I'm getting impatient, wanting to tell Sid his insight. And then on this walk, he got quieter. And Sid just said to him, you know what we do when we're sharing this with people? And he kind of just waited to see what Sid was going to say. And he said, we're just tapping people on the shoulder, waking them up, so they know that they're the dreamer, and they go back into the dream. And often when I speak to people, or I'm in these kind of groups, you can see people want to be woken up and then just stay like awake and not have to go back into the dream. But the dream is the life. The dream is this. And with understanding or awareness, you get to kind of play in that dream. When we're kind of blindly in a dream, not knowing it's a dream, it's terrifying. And I don't know if anyone's had the experience where this happens to be quite a lot, where at night, when I'm actually dreaming a night dream, I realize I'm dreaming, and I can kind of move it in different directions. And if something terrifying is going to happen, I'm like, oh no, I don't have to do that. This is a dream. And I feel like that's what happens more and more with this understanding in our awake dream. We kind of wake up to the fact that it's a dream, and we start to direct it in different ways, and it becomes less serious. And I think we often live as if it's life and death. And I know that I can, urgent. And then when I catch myself, I laugh again. The little things that can worry us. And it's not to belittle them. There's not that things don't happen in life, but we're born and built to be here and to thrive and to experience. And we've got everything we need within us. And I think you see that in young children. They've got everything they need. she's learning to, you know, she can roll over now. I never taught her that. Dave never taught her. One day she just rolled, and then she's like, oh, I can do that, and that's all she wanted to do. And now she's like, yeah, I can do that if I want to, but I don't have to. And at some point she'll be crawling and then walking and speaking, and you just think, wow, we're built to learn and grow, and it's done for us. And I think life is easier than we think, but we kind of have this idea of this self and this free will that creates a character that it's hard. And I just think sometimes these principles, I know for me, have just woken me up to, it's not what you think it is, and it doesn't have to be as hard. And that's been the trajectory, I guess, of my life since hearing about this, is one of a lot more ease. Have you got anything to say before break? No. Yes, we're having break, I think 15 minutes early. So if we go until 11:15 for break, and then we'll come back at 11:15 until 12:30 for Dave's talk on the intelligence of nature.
Thanks, everyone.
You're muted, Dave.
I've just unmuted. Is that better? Can you hear me? Cool. Right. See you in 15.
And welcome back. Lucia and I are going to introduce the next speaker. He's already spoken quite a lot. I always put this in the itinerary. So this section is called The Intelligence of Nature. And I love to hear Dave speak about this, not only because I know it's something that really makes his heart sing, but it took me a good, I think it was about a year or maybe 2 years of hearing some of these things that Dave's talking about to really see the relevance in this conversation. I'd often think, oh, that's so interesting. It's almost like a bit of a science lesson sometimes. But what's that got to do with the principles? What's that got to do with mental health? What's that got to do with? And I remember I was doing a talk with Sam Hurst, who I don't think she's on at the moment, in Leon C. And we said, did anyone want to share anything? And then Dave started speaking about one of the things he likes to talk about, the thorn. And I was thinking, I've heard this before. And then something happened during his talk that just made me go, oh, that's why he's talking about that. And it's like it just kind of blew my mind. And it took my understanding of the power of thought, it took my understanding of the principles to like a whole new level. And it took it out of, you know, I'd done so much work with psychologists, and I'd done an internship with the psychology practice, and it was very human based and very in the mental health field, because that's kind of where I'd worked a lot in. And then suddenly this just expanded out to be universal. And then I realized why it's applicable to us as human beings. So if you can listen kind of with an open mind and really hear what's trying to be pointed at here, because I feel like this points to something that is so hard to put into words, but with these examples and things, stories that Dave will share, I don't know, I feel like you get to have a feeling or an experience of what that deeper intelligence is, that deeper mind. Anything you want to add to that about your dad's stories?
Don't swear.
Is that it? No.
No,
Go ahead.
playing the spoon. Oh, thanks, Jake. Yeah, I once heard a story about the Buddha. Obviously wasn't there, well, not in this incarnation. And apparently he just picked up a flower and he stared at it for however long his talk was. He didn't say a word, he just stared at a flower. And then got up and left. I remember when my mum, is she on the screen still? Yeah, I think she is. Yeah, she's there. She's waving. Mum, Jen and I and my dad, and I think my sister was there. We went to a spot called Cairnholy. Cairnholy is a chambered cairn, Neolithic chambered cairn, apparently, in Galloway in Scotland. Beautiful place. And when we first time we ever went there, there was a fella called Joseph studying it. It was actually Rach, my first wife, and I that came across Joseph. It was about 12 years before I went back with Jen and Mum and Dad and Lise. And next time I went back, there's Joseph stood there studying Cairnholy. Now, Joseph is an American fella. You look at him and go, he's mental. Every day he comes to Cairnholy, he measures shadows, he tries to figure it out, what's going on with Cairnholy, what's it all about, why is it? So for every single day, for I think it was about 15 years, he'd been coming to Cairnholy to study it, to look at it, to figure it out. And I always remember this man because he said one of the most profound things. To me, he was a first-class scientist, an inspirational scientist. I always remember Mum saying, "So what do you see in this then?" And he turned around to Mum and said, "What do you see in it?" And then Mum went, "Okay, well, what do you know about it?" And he said, "Well, how old do you think it is?" Mum said. That's what she said. "How old do you think it is?" And he said, "Well, I know it's over however many years, 15 years old, because I saw it about 15 years ago and it was there then." He said, "And I've seen a photograph of it, apparently in the Second World War." He said, "So I'm pretty sure it was there in the Second World War as well. Other than that, I don't know." And then he said to Mum, "What do you see? What do you see when you see this?" He said, "Because if you look at something long enough, it will teach you something." If you look at something long enough, it will teach you something. You will learn something new. That man wasn't confined within his ego. He was so open that every single day he could turn up at that place and it'd be a magical event. And then he went on to tell us what he discovered about it, what made sense to him. Anybody who's known me for a long time will know I've always loved nature. Nature's been my passion since I was a child, and my awakening really was the consequence of the observation of a jackdaw observing me. And in that moment of non-rational event, what took place, I think the way that I would sum it up with words, which isn't really, it's just me telling a story really about what took place. What I realized was the same force was looking out of me, that was looking out of me, was looking out of the jackdaw. When Sid spoke about these principles, he spoke about them as universal principles, universal, applicable to all. And we tend to think of all being every single one of us. Perhaps we'll extend to the animal kingdom or dogs. Yeah, we know how dogs think. But I want to talk about the power of thought and intelligence. The nature of intelligence. I always look for things that can kind of inspire me in a way to share. the recognition of something beyond our rational thinking that I can find examples of in nature. Something we can look at and we can study and we can go, that makes sense. I hadn't thought about that. The human ego is so big that at some point it decided it was going to separate itself from nature. It calls everything the natural world. Everything else is the natural world, and the human world isn't the natural world, it's the human world. That's a delusion. Very dangerous delusion as well. Because as long as you create a separation, you can create a hierarchy. And what human beings did was they put themselves at the top of a pyramid that doesn't even exist. And destroyed, of step 2, destroying a planet. They've held dominion over other beings, as though our being is more important than theirs. Such a delusion. Remove the trees off the face of planet Earth, see how long we last. Remove the bees, see how long we last. We're not top of the food chain. It only takes a little virus to prove that. So in my mind, the only way, I remember walking along Table View in Cape Town, just outside of Cape Town with Jen, and I was kicking around the plastics, and I was like, frigging microplastics, look, what the hell are we doing? Look at the state of this beach should be beautiful. And after an hour of putting up with my crap, Jenny suddenly looked up at me and went, are you really still looking at the plastics? And for a moment I stopped and I looked up. And I saw the sun setting behind Robben Island, where Nelson Mandela was held. And I saw the turquoise water rolling in. And I saw Table Mountain illuminated orange with the sunset. And Cape Town was just coming into light. It was one of the most spectacular views I'd ever seen. It was beautiful. And in that moment, I was suddenly hit. If you want to help nature, if you want to help this world, you have to help human beings find happiness. That was what came to me in that moment. It's the only way. The only way is to help human beings find happiness. The only way to help nature is to help raise the vibration, the consciousness of the planet, help people, help individuals, and to raise my own. But I've just got some things, some little props that I just want to kind of show to people that I feel help show the intelligence that exists behind everything, that hopefully they will start to feel a part of it. They will start to feel included in the perfection of life. Because when we don't feel included, we feel lonely. And loneliness is a horrible feeling. But I just want to help people wake up and realize they are included, they are important, they are a part, there is something greater going on that perhaps we've missed because of our Western ideologies of the American dream. You can have anything you want so long as you earn your money and work hard. I'm not saying don't work hard, I'm not saying don't earn money, but don't think that's what this life is all about. This life is far bigger. I remember when I was a tree surgeon, I was climbing a tree and I didn't actually get paid for this job in the end. It was a holly tree. And this man took us out to show us his holly tree. He wanted the top third taken out. And he said to me, he said, give my wife a tree and she will grow a rose up it. And me and my mate, we looked at this bloody tree. It was like, how the hell are we supposed to get up that? It was riddled with rose. So I drew the short straw, off I went up this tree. I was literally ripped to shreds, torn to pieces from climbing this tree. I was ripped with all the thorns and Anybody who knows rose, a decent old rose, the woody rose stem with its massive thorns, they don't move so quickly. They really hold on tight and they will tear through your flesh. I had a really rough job up this tree. I tried to best to take the top third out and it didn't look tidy. In the end, he went, I'm not paying for that. And we were like, fine, we're not doing it again. Anyway, see you later. And later on, I was pulling this thorn out of my hand. I was pulling this thorn out of my hand. This is a bramble. And there's a holly. Many plants use the thorn. And as I was just pulling this thorn out of my hand, this little voice came into my head, and out of nowhere, just completely and utterly out of nowhere, it just said to me, why do plants have thorns? And I stood there having a conversation with myself, and I just said, well, it's to protect them. It's to protect the plant, obviously. Hey, Christina, love. And then the next question came in, but how does it work? Well, I feel the thorn and I don't have a nice time. I've had a horrible time up that tree. I feel all the thorns and I don't want to go near the tree. I just want to leave it alone because it hurts. That's how the thorn works. My mind wasn't content with that. It said, but how does it work? So I knew I had to go a little bit deeper to answer this question that was just kept on coming one after another within my mind. But I knew I was learning something. And then I thought back to my school days and I thought back to the nervous system, what I learned about the nervous system. And I thought to myself, well, the thorn penetrates my skin. I have a nervous system all through my body. It affects, it stimulates the nerves. It sends a message to my brain. My consciousness becomes aware of it. It tells me, I tell my hand to move. I remove my hand from the thorn or whatever it be. So far, so good. Then the next question came. But how does a plant of the plant kingdom understand the nervous system of the animal kingdom? Because without the nervous system, the thorn has no value. That one shook me up, for want of a better word. It challenged me. How does a plant of the plant kingdom, without a nervous system and without a brain, understand the existence of a nervous system, how it works, when it itself doesn't have one? The nervous system of the animal kingdom. How does the plant kingdom understand the nervous system of the animal kingdom? Because without the nervous system, the thorn has no value. The only way these work is because they're pointy, they're sharp, they're perfect, what they need to do. Couldn't answer that question. And I set to, with my little intellect, going for it. How does it work? How does it work? Well, perhaps it's this. No, that doesn't work. No, perhaps it's this. Perhaps it's that. I don't know. Is it this? Puzzled me for weeks. How does the plant kingdom, understand the nervous system of the animal kingdom? Because without the nervous system, the thorn has no value. And one day, whilst I was minding my own business, something came to me, it occurred to me. Oh no, the plant doesn't know about the animal nervous system. In fact, I only know about the nervous system because I learnt about it in biology. But that creates the thorn creates the nervous system. There's an intelligence that spans plant and animal kingdom. It's not seen with the naked eye. It's not seen with our intellect. But there is an intelligence that is animating both plant and animal, and it is aware. It knows. It made the thorn that interacted with the nervous system. I've got a friend who I tried to explain this to, and she studied sciences and biology, and she said, but you can't tell me how this works because I already know. I learned this in university. It started with a little bump and then evolution made it do this. And I asked the question, but what's the intelligence behind the evolution that tells the cells to replicate and to reproduce and to divide to create a thorn? What's the intelligence? No, it's random, Dave. It's random. It was all random. And I was saying to her, but can you not see the magnificence? And if evolution is truly random, and evolution hasn't stopped because it can't stop, then where's all the random things that don't really fit into this world? Where's all the beings, the animals that don't really function in this world? Because if it was random, surely it would mean that there would be things just mutating left, right, and center that don't work. So they just don't work, but they're walking around with us. They must be. Because evolution hasn't stopped. And if it was random, then surely that would mean there are bizarre beings that don't function in this world. But that's not true. Every single being has a function within the whole. Everything. Even the animals and insects we don't currently understand, or plants or viruses, or that we don't understand their value and importance at our level of consciousness, what we understand. Perfect. How is it that these nettles wilted now? How is it that they have glassy fronds on them, full of alkali? A very specific appendage, full of alkali that inflicts a burning sensation upon the nervous system, so that we definitely avoid these things. We leave these things the hell alone. And only certain animals are capable of just going out and chomping on them, caterpillars and whatnot. It's genius. It's so intelligent. It's unbelievable. It's so intelligent. We take these things for granted. I mean, I've sworn at brambles my entire tree surgery life. I've always said they're the hardest plant on the planet. They will trip you up. They will tear you to shreds. They do not move. They will grow anywhere. They are nails as a bramble. Again, I'm not talking about the thorn or the nervous system. I'm talking about the intelligence that creates. Some intelligence created this body. Some intelligence created the plant, thorn, the plant, and its chlorophyll cells that interact with light. These solar panels that take in light from a celestial being 92 million miles away, 8 light minutes away. They take in light. There is an awareness built into the chlorophyll cell of the sun. Because without the sun, there is no value in the chlorophyll cell. It has no purpose. It doesn't work. But the sun has never touched the earth. The plant has never touched the sun. But some intelligence created the plant with the chlorophyll cell to generate energy for itself, to produce glucose. These little berries, built with knowledge of the animal kingdom, built into them, built so that the animal kingdom is an integral part of their existence. How's that? Well, this is a fruit, and the birds love the fruit. So this outside of this is a rowan berry. So the outside of this rowan is a fleshy fruit. It's almost like a tiny little apple. It's got flesh around the outside. Oh, it'll get you. It's got flesh around the outside, but in the middle, it's got a little hard seed. Now the seed, the fruit gets eaten, the flesh gets digested, which becomes a food source for the bird. The bird values this. It looks for it, seeks it out. I'm going to seek out that food. Gives me energy. But the fruit gets digested, but the seed is built of such hard material that it doesn't get digested. There is awareness built into every single seed that is consumed by an animal, that the digestive system of the digestive enzymes within the stomach, the seeds don't get digested. And you'll see this if you ever park your car and a blackbird's crapped on it or something. It's been eating yew berries or something like that. You get this purpley red splodge with all these little seeds in it. The seeds don't get digested. They pass through the bird or the animal, whatever it is, and then they get dumped in a nice little convenient pile of manure for them to start germinating in. Genius. They work together. Everything is working together. I often like to, when I was looking, I like to take people into a woodland and say, look up, look at the canopy. Study the canopy, observe the canopy, look at the trees growing around one another, not into one another, but they grow around one another. They are aware of each other's presence. They are aware of self. They are aware of other. Ultimately, that's ego. They have a reality. And that was one of the reasons why I stopped cutting trees, is because when I had this little sentence come into my mind, awareness. Consciousness. Consciousness. Another word for consciousness is awareness. Another word for awareness, or what awareness produces, is experience. To be aware is to experience. And to experience is to generate reality. Consciousness equals awareness, awareness equals experience, experience equals reality. There you go. I remember looking back at my tree work, and I would be very aware that when I reduced a tree, say I took like 40 years growth off a sycamore or an oak or something like that, within 7 years or so, it's back to its original size. Put out something called epicormic growth. The tree was aware that it had been reduced, it had lost its solar panels, and it just put them straight back out again. It got itself back to its original state. They get themselves back to their original state as best they can. And if I ever take a branch off, there's a certain point called the branch collar. If you take a branch to the branch collar and you cut it off and you do it properly, it will heal. Just like myself, when I cut my arm, I heal. The plants heal. The trees heal. We're only just starting to scratch the surface on the intelligence of trees. We're starting to realize they have emotion. I remember reading in one of my forestry magazines about how they put caterpillars on these poplars and maples, and these certain caterpillars were tolerant to the tannins that the trees released. Once these caterpillars were munching on the leaves, they released this tannin that the caterpillars don't like. So they put one set of caterpillars on first, these tannins were released, the caterpillars got off. They left the tree alone. But so they put another, remember it was a silk moth caterpillar, they put the silk moth caterpillar on these trees now, which were flooded with these tannins that these other caterpillars didn't like. And they were tolerant to these tannins, so they were munching through the leaves, only for the tree to release a tannin that they didn't like. And what they discovered was that the trees around them had also released these tannins, so somehow they communicated a message. Release your tannins. There's these caterpillars in the area. And I always remember it, the very last statement of this paragraph. It said, "We know trees think, but we don't know how because they don't have a brain." And there has been the fundamental mistake that creates this massive mystery within science. The mistake that thought is a product of the brain, as opposed to the brain is a consequence of a thought of a universe. Something thinks everything into being, so everything is an idea. Thought isn't a product of the brain utilizes thought. We become very Newtonian in our minds, in our sciences, as opposed to quantum. I was diagnosed with chemical imbalances, medicated for them because of my depression and my anger. Told my brain was malfunctioning. They could control my brain, so I'll be all right. It's dog shit. The things I took were horrible. Made me feel terrible. Went to my own sister's wedding and didn't have any emotion. But when I woke up, all my chemicals changed. All my adrenaline and cortisol levels dropped. That one doctor at any point said, Dave, look, you're full of adrenaline and cortisol. You've got too much adrenaline and cortisol in your body, Dave. What the hell have you been thinking about a lot lately? Because if they'd asked me that question, I'd have said very violent thought. Angry thought. I'm fed up with the world. I'm fed up with life. I'm fed up with this person. I'm fed up with that person. I find life intolerable. And the way I expressed my intolerance was through anger and violence sometimes. There's nothing wrong with my brain. It was the way I was using thought. My body was simply responding to thought. If I think something angry, my brain releases, my body releases adrenaline and cortisol. If I think something beautiful, I release endorphins. That's why Sid said the missing link is thought. The missing link is thought. The universal principle of thought. Universal. Every single being utilizes it. It lives, every single being, the power of thought. And I've just got, I was going to grab my friend, one sec. I've just had her in the shade, so she's a little bit closed up. But people do struggle with the idea that plants are conscious, experiential beings. Humans are. Oh no, humans are. Definitely humans are, but only humans. You know, nature works on instinct. Human beings work on thought. What's instinct? That word that we throw around dismissively, using this word, instinct. Oh, animals work on instinct. Human beings work on thought. That makes us more intelligent. So intelligent, we created an atom bomb. That's how intelligent we are. And we used it on one another. What is instinct? If it's not thought, how could you have instinctive thought without thought? It's thought that human beings don't understand, so they rationalize it away, if that's even a word. Give it the word instinct and say, yeah, everything else works on instinct. Therefore, we can have dominion. We can have control. But what if it's not the case? What if every single living being is an in-the-moment experiential being? So, for example, this mimosa here, this is Mimosa pudica. And as you can see, it's pretty still at the moment. Not a lot's going on for it. I'm just going to put it back in the palm of my hand. Not a lot's going on for it. But if I was to touch this plant, watch what happens. It closes up. Its leaves, they go from open to closed, and then it shuts itself down. I won't bother it too much. in the moment experiential event, in the moment experience, in the moment reality, in the moment behavior, admittedly is limited to what it is capable of. It can't make a paper aeroplane or dig itself a hole or anything like that, but it thrives as a mimosa, perfectly positioned within the environment, within the biome of the earth, to do what the mimosa is meant to do. That too has thorns. But you can see that when I touched it, it was fully aware that that there was something that was affecting it. There was a threat to it. It was fully aware, and it knew what to do. Now, how could it possibly know what to do without a thought? And how could it possibly know what to do without being aware? The plant is aware, it is conscious, but it doesn't have a brain. It doesn't have a brain attached to a nervous system like the human being, but it still feels. It still feels the need to protect itself. Now, I got my sister one of those once, and she kept it in a caravan. She lives in a static, and every time the static caravan door shuts, it vibrates the caravan. And when initially when she got it, she'd shut the caravan door and she'd go in, and Gilbert, she called it Gilbert, had all fainted and collapsed and shut itself down because of the vibrations of the caravan. And whenever anybody shut the caravan door, Gilbert would go, ooh, and hide. Didn't like it. But over a few days, Gilbert learnt that when the caravan door shuts and that vibration happens, I don't need to hide. I don't need to close myself down. I don't need to protect myself. So it just stayed open. It learned. How could anything learn without thought? And Lee said to me, look at this. And she got Gilbert and she gave him a kiss. She said, when I first got Gilbert, I'd kiss him. She said, he would always close up. She said, now he doesn't close up. I was like, wow, that is beautiful. That is so amazing. Look, the plant is learning. The plant is so intelligent. It can learn. Hasn't got a brain, but it's learning. Let me have a go. And I gave Gilbert a kiss, and Gilbert shut up. Gilbert appeared to know the difference between Lisa and myself. When we're talking about thought, not just talking about thinking, we're talking about something that's like this. It's vast. It's infinitely intelligent. It creates all plants and all animals, all fungal kingdoms, bacterial kingdoms, viral kingdoms. It creates every single kingdom. It creates everything. Everything is made of thought. Thought is the energy, the intelligence that holds everything together, that operates everything. Everything is a divine thought. We are a divine idea. Every single one of us is a divine idea. The plant is a divine idea. The thorn is a divine idea. The nervous system is a divine idea. They're not human beings' great inventions. Human being did not invent the human being. Human being did not invent the nervous system. We cannot take credit for our own existence. That's why many cultures give thanks for our own existence. I look at Rusty, and he has every single emotion that I have. Sometimes he's happy, sometimes he's sad, sometimes he's scared, sometimes he's anxious, sometimes he's excited, sometimes he's pissed off. The human emotions, never put human emotions on animals. I don't think it's right to put any reality, our reality onto one another, let alone onto an animal, but these aren't human emotions any more than they're nature's emotions, because we are nature. Human beings are nature. We're an aspect of nature. Just like Rusty, just like the plant, just like the thorn, just like the jackdaw. We are nature. We are one with everything else. We're all made of the same invisible force of intelligence. We all utilize the same invisible force of intelligence. The mimosa plant knows when it's been bothered. I've bothered it. It knows what to do. Now, Baba, you want this? Change him up. You made a mess. You know, the more scientists study the natural world, they don't go, wow, it's more thick than what we actually thought it was. It's more stupid than what we actually thought it was. They go, wow, it's more intelligence than what we ever thought there was. And I've just, if nobody minds, I've got if this works, because I'm not really IT savvy, but hopefully this will work. I've just got some examples of intelligence beyond what, I hope they're just examples that help awaken a spark of interest to the idea that what we're talking about isn't a human psychology. The principles are not human psychology. They're bigger than that. They're a pre-existing order of everything. That's what Sid discovered, and that's what Sid tried to share, a pre-existing order of everything that explains physics, that explains psychology, that explains spirituality, which then, in my opinion, has been very condensed down into a psychology, a psychiatry. When in actual fact, it's much bigger than, oh, I feel what I think. No, that's an aspect of this, but we mustn't hold on to that as being that's what the principles are about. Oh, I feel what I think. It's a useful thing to discover, but what we're talking about is far more vast, far bigger, infinitely bigger. Intelligence. We're built of intelligence. We utilize intelligence. We are intelligence. Everybody's, like Einstein said, everybody's a genius, but if you judge a fish on its ability to climb a tree, it's going to walk through its life thinking it's stupid. We're all intelligent, but in our own way, for our own things. One of the things I say to kids is like, you're a genius. Kids that are struggling at school, I'd say to them, but are you interested in your subject? Our nephew Archie, he was convinced he was stupid, and Jen and I were sat in the car and I said to him, Arch, what do you love? He said, Pokemon. All right, Pokemon, cool. In this car, who is the genius on Pokemon? Who knows the most about Pokemon in this car? And he went, me. I said, that makes you a genius in this vehicle. You're a genius in what you're interested in. But what you're comparing yourself against is other people who are interested in different things and they're really good at them. It's the beautiful thing about nature. It doesn't make the same thing over and over again. It makes individual out of the one. Everybody is a genius. Just so many people are afraid to follow their hearts. They do what they think they should do with their life as opposed to truly following their hearts. Many people take on jobs that I ask them, why would you want to do that crappy, what appears to be crappy job that you're going to spend all your life in a sodding office, crunching numbers or something? I don't know. Is that really what makes your heart sing? Is that really what you came onto this planet Earth to do? Was it honestly what you set to with your infinite potential of life? You're going to spend your whole life doing that. Is that honestly what you want to do? Or are you doing it for the money because you believe the money's going to make you happy? Follow your heart and you'll make it work. That's why I do this work. I follow my heart because this is what I want to do. It's not always easy. Doesn't always make ends meet all the time. But I have a beautiful life, and at the end, when I get to the end, that's what this is all about. Surely that's what this is all about. It's not about how much money we die with in the bank or the house that we had. Isn't it about how much fun, how much love, how much joy we got to experience along the way, people we met and connected with, discoveries and things that we realized and grew from, overcame challenge? Isn't that what this is really all about? Learning. So many people are afraid to follow the heart. Nature always follows its heart. It always follows its inspiration. It always faces challenge and overcomes it. Look at Chernobyl. Oh, nothing will live in Chernobyl for 1,000 years. Yeah, right. Nature overcame that problem. Sharpish. It's thriving, it's teeming with life, even though there is radiation levels that are supposed to be unsustainable to organic life. No, nature's too intelligent. It figures it out. There's a fungus apparently growing in the Fukushima nuclear reactor that was damaged in the tsunami in Japan. There's a fungus growing in the nuclear reactor. There is funguses that are coming into being that are eating plastic. Nature's got its shit together. We've just got to catch up. We are left in the dark ages in our egos, thinking that we're separate from it. And the moment we align ourselves with nature, we start to do better. We start to live better. We start to feel better, because nature is made of love. It favors every single living being in the whole all at the same time. I once heard it said, and I love that. It favors every single living being. It gives every single living being the opportunity to live a brilliant life. That's not, none of these are dead, by the way, they're just cut. Gives everything, every single being gets everything it needs to thrive. Including all of us. We've all already got it. We just have to wake up to it and step into it. We have to allow it in. We have to let go of the old that no longer serves us. So here's just some examples of animals that I think just demonstrate the intelligence behind the form, behind the thorn, behind the nervous system, the all-encompassing intelligence that knows. So this is a leaf-tailed gecko. And you'll see this tail here, it looks like a leaf. The whole thing looks like leaves. Look at it, it's got the little pointy bit at the end there. It's got the coloration of a decaying leaf. It even looks like it's got veins all over it. The animal kingdom masking itself as the plant kingdom. What kind of intelligence are we talking about here? Spanning, it spans all the kingdoms. It spans all the kingdoms. Spans all the mineral kingdoms as well. I mean, we're talking about universal kingdom. It is the universal kingdom. Here there's a leopard. You see the camouflage masking itself against the dead leaves, which it will be seen from above. Most of the time it's going to be seen from above. Intelligence, intelligently created intelligence, so it works, so that it fits in, so it can survive, so it can thrive. This is I don't know what this green thing is. I'll get rid of it. Oh, God knows. Anyway, this is a gecko, some description. I don't know what kind of gecko, but look at the camouflage. Here's the tree, the branch. Here's its foot going round here. This gecko, it's got all these little bits sticking out to break up its outline. It's completely lichen coloured. Genius, absolute genius of mimicry. Again, plant and animal kingdom. Here's another gecko. This is a bit more difficult to see. I apologize about that green box. I don't know how to get rid of it. But if you really look closely, you'll see a head down here. How do I get rid of that? That's closed, isn't it? You'll see a head down here. And you'll see its little foot here. Going round, I think. You see, even I'm struggling now. I'm staring at it and I'm struggling to see it. I think then it goes down here, along here. And I think that might be another foot there. Although it does look a bit too long, I'm not sure. This is how amazing this one is. Goes off up there. There's its back. There's its eye. I mean, the intelligence, the underpinning intelligence that exists. I love these little things. These are some kind of frog hopper. They just sit around on branches looking like thorns. Nothing's going to bother them. Genius. Look at them. We'll just pretend to be thorns. Nothing will bother us if we pretend to be thorns. This is a caterpillar next to some moss. There's the moss. Here's the caterpillar. Is this just chance evolution? Or is it such perfect creation? Do we really think this is just chance? Do we really just think that this is all nonsense? It's not really important, you know. Life's just a chance event, then you die and you go to nothing. Do we really think that's true? It's not true. It's so far from being true. Life is beautifully orchestrated. This is a beautiful orchestra of physicality. It's perfect. I love this. This is called the pygmy seahorse. I'm sure you can all see it. But look, this is all coral. This is all coral. And you'll see the little pygmy seahorse's tail here. Right round here, round to its eye, its little nose. Disguised as coral. Is that chance? Is that really chance? Is it really just a fluke, a freak of evolution? Or is it beautifully orchestrated? This is a moth. There's the moth, there's the end of a twig. The camouflage of the wood on the wing, and this head that looks like a snap branch. Genius. What a genius. If it was just one of these examples and I could only find one example, I might go, yeah, fair enough, it's a bit random, a bit chance. But there's billions of these examples in all around the world. In every single country, there's examples of animals that are capable of hiding into their background, disguising themselves as something. Perhaps they disguise themselves as a predator. That's not a disguise. Ants that disguise themselves as, or spiders that disguise themselves as ants. There's insects that disguise themselves as leaves. You know, the hoverfly disguises itself as a wasp to protect itself. This is one of my favorites. Speak up, anybody who's never seen this before. Only people who've never seen it before. If you've seen it before, you'll kill the fun. What is that? Anybody know? Anybody got any ideas? I'm sorry about the blender in the background. Zoe, what does that look like to you, love? Mind you, Zoe might be asleep. It's middle of the night in her country. Anybody? Has everybody gone to sleep? Ange, you already know.
I don't know, but I think I've forgotten. Yeah. Same as what Debbie said. a snake. I know it's not, but that's what it looks like.
Yeah, did Deb say that?
Yeah, Deb just said it in the words.
Oh, you did, Deb. So sorry, love, and Lee and Lou. Sorry, I didn't see that. Yeah, it looks like a snake. It's not. If you look here, these are feet. They're folded up little legs. That's actually a mouth part there. These aren't its eyes at all. It's a caterpillar. It's a caterpillar of a hawk moth that lives in South America. And when it feels threatened, it inflates itself. It doesn't walk around looking like that. It actually inflates, it puffs itself up, inflates itself, so it starts to look like a viper. Now, anything in the jungle is going to give that thing a wide berth because it doesn't want to be bitten by a viper. But again, is this random chance that this caterpillar has the ability to pump itself up and look like a viper, one of the most formidable beings in the jungle? Or is it so beautifully orchestrated, but we've missed it? And perhaps now we could start to see it. The reason why I talk about this is to expand people's thinking about what thought is. We tend to think of thought as just being, oh, thoughts. What about this thought? What about that thought? No, we're talking about the intelligence that created a universe, and every single living thing that lives within it, and everything that appears not to be living is actually living because everything is conscious. Everything is that same consciousness. Therefore, everything is life. Every single rock we pick up, every single crystal that we have in our house, every single tree, every single planet, every single sun is consciousness. We're not alone. We're anything but alone. We are all a family of one. The plants, the animals. You always say the animals. We are animals. The plant kingdom, the animal kingdom, the fungal kingdom, bacterial kingdom, the viral kingdom, whatever kingdom, we're all family of the one. We're all brothers and sisters of the one source. And the sooner we wake up to that, the sooner this world will return to a beautiful equilibrium. Because the only thing that's taking us away from that is our own beliefs that we are separate from one another and from nature. Look for it. When you're out in the garden, look at the intelligence, look at the birds doing what the bird does. When they become aware of you, they will be afraid. They will feel afraid. They will have a feeling. They will have an experience. They experience a reality. Just like we experience reality, they experience reality. Just like I experience reality, the mimosa plant experiences a reality. Very different to my own. No idea what that's like, but like I often say, I've been with Jenny for 7 years. We spend every single day together and we perplex the crap out of each other. We don't understand each other's realities half the time. Everything is an experience. Every single living being is an experience. Every single spider in the corner of your room is a conscious experiential reality taking place just like we are. Every single fly that walks up your window is a consciousness. It's experience. It is a reality. It's experiencing reality. And it's real to it. It does what the fly is meant to do. Every single ant, remember Jen sitting in the garden saying, I've just realized that the ant I'm watching is having a totally different reality to every other ant in the colony. It experiences its own reality. If you look at this and you start to piece it all together, you realize that reality really is an infinite event taking place now. Every single daisy that comes up on your lawn is an experience, is a reality. This is the nature of God, for want of a better word, for source, for mind, of source, of mind. It's experience. It's reality coming through us as source beings, as God beings, creating. using the power that we are to generate, to believe, to create. We can create heaven and we can create hell. I was blind to this fact. And when I was blind to that fact, I felt a victim in this world. I felt like I didn't belong. I felt isolated and I felt lonely. I felt like I needed to protect myself from the world and other people, when in fact I was never separate from them. There was never actually anything to be afraid of. How can there be anything to be afraid of within the one? It would only be it being afraid of itself. That's what we are doing to ourselves. We are generating experience that we then become afraid of. And we suffer. But we think it's something else. We call it illness. We think it's an illness, which then makes it something that's not within our control. It's not an illness. It's misunderstanding. It's a delusion. We're all perfect. We're all deeply, deeply, deeply intelligent beings. Built of intelligence, just like everything else. It's all thought. It's all thought. Thought is the nature of the universe. The dream of life, as the mystics called it. The dream of life. Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 merrily. Life is but a dream. Go with the flow. Let go. Let life live. Stop creating dams and weirs with belief we hold on to that we think keep us safe. It's a prison. Do you want to say out, Jen?
No, just say thank you. I thought it did feel like you came to a natural break then, so it'd be nice to give people extra 10 minutes for lunch. We're back at
2:30.
2:30.
The questions, observations,
reflections, and we'll have a quick break, and then we've got Linda Pettit, and she'll be talking. She'll mention her book, and her topic is Lean into Curves. Linda's been on quite a few of our retreats, and we love to listen to her. Yeah, I've really enjoyed. Like, I've been a little bit distracted. We've been making lots of noise up here, but I'm glad I got to listen in. And yeah, I hear it different every time you speak about it.
Cool. Right, everyone, go and have a lovely lunch. So we're back.
Please, over lunch, if anything occurs to you that you'd like to speak about, or questions, observations, reflections, anything, we'd love to hear from people after the break.
Yep.